The room was small, dimly lit, and carried the heavy silence of struggle. A single bulb flickered above, casting shadows on the cracked walls. On the worn wooden chair sat a little girl, no older than 7, her tiny fingers gripping tightly at the strands of her long, silky hair. It was her pride, her comfort, something she believed made her special. But now, it felt like the very thing being taken away from her. Her mother stood a few feet away, holding a pair of scissors that shook in her hand. The mother's eyes were swollen, not from anger, but from countless sleepless nights worrying about unpaid bills and empty cupboards. She loved her daughter more than life itself, yet the cruel hand of poverty had cornered her into a decision no mother ever wanted to make. "Please, Mom, don't cut my hair," the girl cried, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her flushed cheeks. She clutched her hair as if protecting the last piece of her childhood. Her sobs filled the room, echoing off the bare walls, each one like a dagger piercing her mother's heart. The mother knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's wet face. "Baby," she whispered, her own voice trembling, "I don't want to do this. But we need money. If I sell your hair, I can buy food. Just for a little while. We'll be okay." But the little girl shook her head violently, her chest heaving as she pleaded again. "No, Mama, please, I'll be good, I'll eat less, but don't take it away." To her, the idea of losing her hair felt like losing a part of who she was. It was not just hair, it was the thing her mother used to braid every morning, the thing she admired in the mirror, the thing that made her feel beautiful in a world already so harsh. The mother closed her eyes, torn apart between desperation and love. She tightened her grip on the scissors, but her heart wavered with every cry. The moment was thick with despair, the kind where hope seemed too far away to touch. Little did they know, someone outside that room was listening, and about to change everything. Just beyond the thin walls of the modest apartment, life carried on as usual. The hallway smelled faintly of old paint and dust, a place where footsteps echoed longer than they should. On that particular evening, a man in a tailored suit stood quietly outside the neighboring door. He was there to see his accountant, papers in hand, his mind filled with numbers and contracts. He was a man of immense wealth, a millionaire whose life, from the outside, seemed polished and untouchable. Yet wealth had not shielded him from pain, nor had it filled the hollow ache in his chest left by the loss of his only daughter years ago. As he waited, distracted by thoughts of business and silence, a sound suddenly pierced through the stillness. A cry, raw, desperate, and heartbreakingly young. His head lifted immediately. He frowned, listening. The muffled words became clearer. "Please, Mom, don't cut my hair." The man froze. The words struck him like lightning. His mind was thrown back to a memory he rarely let surface. The sound of his own little girl's voice begging him once, long ago, to stay home and not leave for another business trip. She was gone now, taken by illness too early, leaving him with wealth but no warmth, success but no smile to come home to. He pressed his hand against the wall, leaning closer. The sound of sobs seeped through, small gasps, pleas, and the trembling voice of a mother trying to explain the impossible. His jaw tightened, his throat dry. He had been in boardrooms where billions were discussed, he had shaken hands with presidents and leaders, but nothing had ever unsettled him like this moment. His heart pounded, louder than the cries. He could hear the mother's weary voice explaining, about food, about money, about sacrifice. And he could hear the little girl's voice break, filled with fear of losing not just her hair, but a part of herself. The millionaire's chest ached as memories collided with reality. He thought of the countless donations he had made, the charities, the numbers written on checks. Yet, none of those distant acts of giving ever felt as urgent, or as human, as the plea coming from behind that fragile wall. Something within him shifted. His hand curled into a fist, not from anger, but from determination. He could not just stand there. Not this time. The millionaire's heart raced as he stood outside the door, torn between hesitation and urgency. His hand hovered for only a moment before instinct took over. With a firm knock, he announced his presence. The sudden sound startled the mother inside, making her nearly drop the scissors. She quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, hiding the evidence of her tears. When she opened the door, her tired eyes met the gaze of the stranger in the hallway. He stood tall, well-dressed, and out of place against the peeling paint and dim corridor light. His voice was calm yet carried a weight that demanded attention. "Mom," he began softly, glancing past her shoulder, "I couldn't help but hear. What's happening?" The mother's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She lowered her gaze, shifting uncomfortably, the scissors still in her trembling hand. "It's nothing," she whispered, her voice barely holding together. "Just family matters." But the man's eyes caught the scene inside. The little girl perched on the chair, her face streaked with tears, her arms wrapped tightly around her long hair like a shield. The sight pierced him deeper than any memory. His chest tightened, and suddenly, the restraint in his voice broke. "Stop," he shouted, his tone sharp with urgency. The word filled the room like thunder, startling both mother and child. The scissors clattered softly against the floor as the mother dropped them, shaken by the intensity of his voice. The little girl looked up, her wet eyes wide with surprise. The mother stepped back defensively, clutching her daughter's shoulders. "Who are you two?" she began, but the man quickly raised a hand, his expression softening. "Please," he said more gently now, his voice trembling with sincerity. "Don't cut her hair. I know you're desperate. I know it feels like there's no way out. But taking something so precious from her," he glanced at the child, then back at the mother. "That's not the answer." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. The mother's lip quivered, torn between pride, shame, and relief. She wanted to argue, to protect her dignity, but her heart wavered at the stranger's raw compassion. For the first time in weeks, someone saw her pain, not as a burden, but as a cry for help. The mother's knees felt weak as she sank slowly into the chair across from her daughter, her hands covering her face. The scissors lay forgotten on the floor. The stranger's words echoed in her ears, words so simple yet powerful enough to break the walls she had built around her pain. The millionaire stepped quietly inside, his polished shoes tapping gently against the worn floorboards. He did not come with judgment in his eyes, only a compassion that seemed almost foreign to the woman who had lived so long in struggle. He crouched down to meet the little girl at eye level. "Sweetheart," he said softly, his voice warm and careful, "your hair is beautiful. And it's yours. You should never have to beg to keep it." The little girl sniffled, clutching tighter to her strands, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes now, hope she hadn't felt since her mother first reached for the scissors. The mother's lips trembled as she spoke, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. I don't want to hurt her. But we have nothing. Rent is due, the cupboards are empty, and her hair is the only thing worth money." The millionaire's chest tightened. He thought of all the times he had signed checks for faceless charities, the money moving like numbers on a page. But here, before him, was a need that was painfully real. Reaching into his coat, he pulled out his wallet and laid a thick stack of bills on the table, enough to cover months of rent, groceries, and more. "You don't need to sell her hair," he said firmly. "No child should cry for survival. This will help you get back on your feet." The mother's eyes widened, disbelief flooding her face. I can't accept this," she whispered, tears brimming. But the man shook his head gently. "It's not charity. Think of it as a promise, that your daughter's smile matters more than money. And someday, when life is kinder, you can pass this kindness forward." The little girl slid off the chair and threw her tiny arms around her mother, burying her face in safety. The scissors were gone, but something greater had taken the place, hope. The room felt different now. The air, once heavy with despair, seemed lighter, as if hope itself had stepped through the door. The little girl clung to her mother's waist, her tears finally slowing. She ran a small hand through her long hair, relief softening her tiny face. For the first time that night, she managed a shy smile. The millionaire stood quietly, watching them. His own eyes glistened, though he quickly blinked away the moisture. He hadn't expected to feel this much. He had only meant to help, but something in the girl's tearful plea had reached deep into the part of his heart that grief had long kept locked away. He knelt again so the child could see him eye to eye. With a gentle smile, he whispered, "Keep your hair, sweetheart. Your smile is worth more than gold." His words were simple, but the way he said them made the little girl believe they were true. She nodded, her arms tightening around her mother. The mother, still overwhelmed, finally found her voice. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her tears falling freely now, not of despair, but of gratitude. "You've given us more than money. You've given us a chance." The man placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and kind. "No thanks needed. Just promise me one thing. Never lose hope. Even when the world feels cruel, there's always someone willing to help. And one day, when you're able, you'll do the same for someone else." Those words settled in the mother's heart like a seed of strength. She nodded, holding her daughter closer. For the first time in a long while, she felt like tomorrow might not be as dark as yesterday. The millionaire rose, gave them one last look, a look filled with quiet affection, and then stepped back into the hallway. His footsteps faded, but his presence lingered, like a light left burning in the shadows of their lives. As the door closed, the mother kissed the top of her daughter's head and whispered, "See, baby. Miracles do happen." And in that moment, in a tiny apartment that once carried only sorrow, hope bloomed again.